I find it ironic that defenders of the faith typically argue in bad faith, because religious faith is not about ascertaining or understanding or defending truth. It's about make-believe, trying to convince yourself completely, to make yourself and others believe what is not evidently true nor even possible. Now, there are plenty of honest people who really do believe sincerely because they were deceived. Because the ultimate goal of religious institutions is to mislead and deceive. So in that game, you're either deceived or a deceiver, also known as a religious apologist. If you're an apologist, then your job is to convince others to believe what you yourself might not. That means that in the marketplace of ideas, you have to make it appear as if the religious position has the higher ground, both morally and intellectually. Even if you're just a stupid liar, you have to make it look like yours is the default conclusion, as if common sense, knowledge, and wisdom are all on your side, even when none of them are. Thus, you have to debate the opposition, but only where the game can be rigged, or where it is possible to escape accountability. And one of the many ways that apologists argue in bad faith is with trick questions, questions that are deliberately designed to get deceptive answers. They're often closed questions, disallowing any response other than yes or no. Now, on the flip side, it can be maddening that when we ask a question that can be answered with a yes or no, the answers we get instead are desperate attempts to spin the narrative, such that if we get any answer at all, we can't even tell if it's a yes or a no. Often the so-called answer doesn't have anything to do with the question. And of course, a favorite tactic of believers is to project all their own faults onto us and accuse us of whatever they're doing. For example,
but they tell the kids, we're going to learn to think critically. Boys and girls, do you think humans are still evolving? What kind of question is that? That's one of those questions like, have you stopped beating your wife yet? Wow, let me think. If I say yes, I'm admitting I did. If I say no, I'm still doing it. Did you know it's possible for the question to already have a built-in assumption? Look at that question. Do you think humans are still evolving? What's the built-in assumption? That humans evolved. Now, how's a Christian kid supposed to answer that for homework for Monday?
Well, since it's a definite fact that humans did in fact evolve, then there's no assumption. This question gets to whether the student thinks that evolution is something that happened long ago and stopped, or, as some people think, that we are the pinnacle of evolution. But if the student wants to believe that humans did not evolve, or if they have some other answers that we haven't thought of, anything that can't be answered with a simple yes or no, then the page allows them to explain. That's how you get out of that alleged quandary. Creationists don't want there to be any explanation, clarification, or correction of the question because they're not trying to understand, they're trying not to understand. And they don't want anyone else to understand either. That's why they demand that you can only answer yes or no. And the question is structured in such a way that either one of those answers will be wrong. The apologist doesn't want an honest answer because they want to believe in a lie. So they need you to appear as if you're the liar. So a few years ago, I was on a podcast with one of the stupidest people I have ever talked to in my life, who kept asking me the same dumbass question over and over and demanding that I only answer yes or no.
Have you ever seen an ape turn into a human being?
I told him how creationists commonly distort evolution as if it means one kind of thing turning into another fundamentally different kind of thing. Even though humans and the other apes are fundamentally identical, the only significant difference being increased intellectual capacity of our oversized brains, though the host of that show failed to demonstrate any such cognitive ability.
You just use a word, but you're not making sense.
Do you understand that the word ape is a taxonomic question, right? That's a taxonomic word. Do you understand what it means?
No, that's not the question, though. You're deviating.
No, I'm not deviating. What
now,
does the word
if you
ape
can
mean?
prove to me that you've seen a ape turn into a human being,
what does the word
that
ape mean?
Word can mean many things. But let me ask you this.
But this word means one thing. What does it mean?
I have no idea.
A lot of people think that ape means chimpanzee. They don't understand that ape is a category, not a species. An ape is any member of the taxonomic superfamily Hominoidea. Our physical morphology and genetics prove that we are part of that group. Fossil intermediates are just icing on the cake. So I explained how we are already both humans and apes to begin with. It's not possible to turn into what you already are. But he didn't get it because he doesn't understand things. His job is not to understand things. So he just wanted to log whether my answer was yes or whether it was no, even though both answers would be wrong, and I think he was counting on that. That's why any other answer was automatically rejected. That discussion came up again recently when someone on Facebook, a troll I've argued with before, complained about how I refused to answer that simple question with a simple yes or no. I explained to that guy that whether I had answered yes or no, either way, would make me complicit in the attempted deception. So without further comment, he posted this. Do you believe this? I told him he is asking another question that is itself wrong for multiple reasons. I cannot answer with a yes or no because there are misunderstood misrepresentations built into the question. If he was sincere, then I would help him understand. But this is one of those trolls who, even after you correct everything he gets wrong, he still repeats all the same errors in the next hour. So there's no point trying to explain anything to the willfully ignorant. But maybe there might be some value in explaining this to you. This picture is an edited abbreviation of a much larger illustration depicting these 6 figures plus 9 more. But even if he had posted the full image, I still couldn't say that I accept it, because the artist depicted them all in sequence. Even though they are all intermediate forms, as you can see, a few of them represent side branches that do not lead to the one ahead of it. That's not a straight chain of being, it's a branching tree. The reason creationists cut this image down this much is because 1, it fits better on the page, and 2, they can use this shortened image to convey the same misconceptions I've already mentioned, but with a few more thrown in, including some built into the new revision. Religious fundamentalists look at that last figure, the culmination of this march of progress, and see that it leads to a man, Homo sapiens, just like we have today. But then they look at the first one in that sequence, the littlest one at the beginning, and they think that that's a chimpanzee, just like we have today. Then they insist that the other 4 guys in the middle either never existed or that they are either modern people or chimpanzees. And believers can't always agree which one is which. Sometimes they'll say that this one is 100% human, or they'll say it's 100% ape, and then the next guy will switch them back and say, no, this one's 100% human and that one's 100% ape, because they can't allow that anything would be any other percentage. They cut down the image this much because they don't want to know about all these other intermediate forms. Not when they're determined to pretend that they're all the same thing or that they're all hoaxes created by a massive conspiracy against God. So it's like they clipped the second page to the last page and ignored the other 3 pages. That's what other image editors have done. But this one is actually worse than that because these weren't copied. They were redrawn, and they were drawn deliberately badly, so that it is impossible to tell whether we're looking at Oreopithecus, Ramapithecus, or Paranthropus. They were redrawn incorrectly because that artist wanted ambiguity. If you ever argued with creationists, then you know how they need to be able to make up excuses to move the goalposts rather than ever admit defeat on any critical point. But it's worse than even that, because as we look at the more recent ones, their bodies look like Homo erectus and Heidelbergensis, but their faces look like they're wearing the makeup from Planet of the Apes. This artist wanted all of them except for the last one, except for the clear and unambiguous man. They wanted everything else to just look like apes, so as not to be confused with humans. It's funny how creationists think that we're so fundamentally different from all other apes, but the only difference they care about is the face, and that we're so much smarter than the other apes are. That just means that we're smart apes. It doesn't mean that we're not apes. These science denialists also like to pretend as if evolution teaches that this sequence happened all at once, like to a single individual over the course of one lifetime, and that evolution is something that happened like that once upon a time, but not anymore, when in fact evolution is ongoing all the time and never stops until extinction. Another misconception is that this image represents a direct ancestor-descendant relationship, specifically implying that each one is the father of the next one and his son fathered the next one after that, because creationists ask for a direct father-son descendants all the way down. They want absolutely everybody in the whole sequence or they're going to reject everything. Which is funny. They want absolute, undeniable proof for the thing they don't want to believe, but they don't have. They ignore all the evidence against what they do believe, and that's fine, without any evidence to support it. Remember, believers are trying not to understand, but they've still got to put up a fight that the public can see, where it can seem like they're winning even when they get everything wrong. So this internet troll shows me this picture, an edited, doctored distortion of the original without any labels or discussion, because apologists rely on ambiguity. And he asks me whether I believe it. Well, that depends on a few things. Which misconceptions is this troll assuming? Is it one I've already listed? Is it something even worse that I've never heard of before? Or does he just mean whether I believe that men came from apes? Let's be charitable and assume it is the latter, and that maybe he intends to argue against the existence of intermediate forms. Do I believe that men came from apes? Well, there's one more thing that still need to be defined. To my experience, there are two applications for the word believe. For self-professed believers, a belief is an act of will. They declare it a virtue of faith to be able to defy logic, reject evident reality, and make believe something else instead, even against all reason to the contrary. The definition I would use is that a belief is when you think something is probably true, but you don't know it is because you can't show that it is. The problem with that is that religious zealots, one, won't admit that believing something is different than knowing it, unless they apply, because it's okay for them. They can say that a belief is knowledge, but for us, knowledge can only be belief. So it's a complete double standard. And religious zealots say that anything that you're not 100% certain of somehow counts as religious belief and a faith, no matter how much evidence there is to go on, which is nonsense again. So, do I believe that humans came from apes? No. I know we did. Not just because evolution is such an easily verifiable fact that doesn't require belief, but can be demonstrated and tested in many ways verified, but because I can also prove that we are still apes right now. Shut up! I need to record now. I'm recording right now, so you need to lay down. Lay down.